Ego is not the enemy. Ego is not bad. The more you make ego the enemy, the more resistance you provide, the more you reinforce the very ego itself, the more the ego loves that. The ego wants a fight because the job of the ego is to reinforce its existence and protect you from getting hurt.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Thrive State Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. V, triple board certified MD and performance longevity expert. And on today's podcast, I give you a very special treat. I'm actually going to share an excerpt of something I've been working on for the past year. It has been a passion project, a project of love called the Thrive State Summit. It's going to be an online and virtual event where I host 50 of the world's thought leaders and experts in the field of mental health, of how to actually get the tools to beat chronic stress and burnout. Really, it's going to be a resource that's going to be so valuable for you. You can register for free at thrivestatesummit.com. Now, if you are new to the podcast, I want to welcome you in. This podcast is really about elevating our life. And so I get the opportunity to bring in many of my friends who are thought leaders and world experts in the fields of mental health, resilience, longevity, relationships, business, where we come up with the tools and tactics for you to take your life to the next level. And for those who this podcast has already helped, if you are returning, thank you so much for allowing this podcast to grow. It is through your engagement, through you guys subscribing that really helps us. So if you haven't already, please hit subscribe. Please share this podcast with your friends and family members. And whenever you get a chance, please leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcasts. If you haven't already, consider picking up a copy of my book, Thrive State, at thrivestatebook.com. It's really the pillars, the blueprint that you need to actually control your energetic state, because it is our energetic state, the frequency by which we live life through, actually becomes a signal to our DNA that actually controls our physiology, that gives us access to optimal health, longevity, and peak performance. Now, as I said before, this is an excerpt from the Thrive State Summit. It is certainly a passion project. I spent the past year interviewing 50 of the world's top leaders in mental health, emotional wellness, to really give you the tools. And on today's podcast, we'll just give you a small sample of one interview. And so if you want to listen to the entire interview, along with the entire interviews of 50 of the world expert in mental health, chronic stress, and burnout, please register now at thrivestatesummit.com. You'll particularly want to listen and register for the summit if you are feeling the weight of chronic stress or burnout, or maybe you're grappling with persistent symptoms of anxiety or depression, or maybe even physical symptoms of fatigue, brain fog, weight gain. They're all energetically connected. If we're not looking out for our mental health, our social health, our emotional health, our spiritual health, and physical health go out the window as well. So the Thrive State Summit is something that's so near and dear to my heart. I did it because I've had so many friends in the past couple of years really suffer from the consequences of not looking after our mental health, all the way down to suicide. And so I wanted to make sure that the world has resources when dealing with mental health issues, because not only can we avoid physical, emotional, mental symptoms, but we could also end up being the very best versions of ourselves. Because trust me, the ones that love you, your family, your businesses, everyone around you, is just that much better when you can bring the full you to them. So I hope you enjoy this conversation, which is the excerpt. And please register at thrivestatesummit.com. It is completely free. You're going to get so much value from it. But please enjoy this little excerpt from the Thrive State Summit. I hope to see you in the summit itself. Please enjoy this episode of the Thrive State Podcast. Hello and welcome back to another session of the Thrive State Summit. With me is somebody I met years ago that we're just reconnecting now. He is Kute Blackson, a renowned transformational speaker, best-selling author, and has become the go-to mindfulness guru for billionaires and recognized by Inc. magazine. With a substantial social media presence and appearances on renowned platforms such as Larry King Now, Dr. Drew, NPR, and Mind Body Green, Kute's message of transformation has touched countless lives. His interviews on podcasts such as Impact Theory and Bulletproof have garnered praise for their inspirational content. At a time where the world faces unprecedented challenges, Kute's latest book, The Magic of Surrender, serves as a guiding light. Kute challenges the conventional view of surrender as passive and instead showcases it as an embodiment of strength and courage. His work has received endorsements from prominent figures like Jack Canfield, Les Brown, John Gray, reflecting the profound impact of his message. His mission is to empower individuals to tap into their greatness and fulfill their destiny, and his work has already changed thousands of lives worldwide. Kute, welcome to the Thrive State Summit.
Thank you for having me.
You know, as we start here, I want to ask you, what inspired you to dive into the topic of surrender and write The Magic of Surrender?
You know, this was not the book I wanted to write. This was not the book I planned to write. This was not the book I envisioned writing or intended to write. In fact, one day I sat down with an entire whiteboard and I thought I would be clever. I thought I would strategize, and I started thinking about what book would get me on the bestsellers list? What book would my publishers want? What book would take things to the next level? What book does my audience want? What book has never been written? And I came up with about 75 ideas. And all of them were great. But the only word that really felt authentic to me, felt true to me, felt real to me was the word surrender, this word at the bottom. And I thought, I was a bit resistant because I thought, I don't know if I want to write about surrender because there's so many misconceptions that we have about surrender in our culture, and it's something we know we should do, but we resist it. It's kind of like going to the dentist, but there's this internal resistance to surrender because we have many misunderstandings about it. And so I had to surrender to the book about surrender, and when I surrendered to it, things flowed. I would say that initially the seed for the theme of surrender, the book about surrender, has really been a theme throughout my whole life, but I just wasn't aware. But specifically, I would say the seed was planted at the end of 2016, because in that moment, I was on a big high after my first book, You Are the One, was a bestseller, and I was on Larry King. And somehow the universe, life has a way of humbling you in high moments and bringing you to your knees. And so here I am, just come off Larry King. That evening, I get a phone call from London, and I'm told my mother, woman I love the most, has stomach cancer. And I felt so, I just felt like someone kicked me in the stomach, you know, and I felt so heartbroken. And the person I love the most might die. And so I started flying from LA to London, where my mother lives, literally every month for a year, with the intention on healing her and getting her well. And I had my whole plan. And after a few months, I realized that I think that my mother has her own journey, you know, and I had to surrender. And so about 7 months into the process, the doctors finally sat us down and they looked my mother in the eyes and they said, get your affairs in order because you're going to die, basically. So prepare yourself. You may have days, weeks, months, but it's certainly not years. And I remember being in the parking lot and I looked my mother in the eyes. She's a little Japanese woman. And I asked my mother, are you afraid? Because the moment is coming. And I'm crying because I realize the woman I love the most is going to die. And my mother looks me in the eyes and she says, I'm not afraid because I know I'm not this body. And this body is just a temporary vehicle for my soul. And this body will die. But what I am will live forever. It's beyond birth and beyond death. So I'll be guiding you from the other side. And then I asked my mother, and this is where I think the seed was planted. Then I asked my mother, what can I do for you? What do you need? What do you want? Where do you want to go? Like, I wanted to be a good son. And my mother said, there's nothing I need and there's nothing I want. All I want is what God wants for my life. And in that moment, I understood something. In that moment, I felt her peace. In that moment, I felt her freedom. In that moment, I understood why she was at peace and equanimity. She was completely surrendered. She wasn't attached to living. She wasn't attached to dying. She was surrendered to the highest unfolding and intention and journey for her soul's evolution. And that was her freedom. And so that's when I saw that surrender is the password to freedom. And as I started reflecting on people that inspired me in my life, a Jesus, a Buddha, a Gandhi, a Mother Teresa, a Martin Luther King, a Muhammad Ali, a Bruce Lee, folks that were not weak, what I saw was at some point, all of these inspiring humans, they got to the point where they had to surrender themselves to life. They got to the point where they surrendered themselves to the universe. They got to the point where they surrendered themselves, and in that, and maybe surrendered the life that they thought that they were going to live. And in that surrender, they were able to tap into another dimension of life. And in that surrender, they transcended their human limitations, and life began to express through them. Life began to use them. Life began to manifest through them and create through them in perhaps ways they could not have imagined. And so in our culture, we have this misconception that surrender is weak. But I believe that surrender is the most powerful thing that we can do. Surrender is the key to the next level of manifestation, the next level of our lives. It's the password to freedom. But we think surrender is weak, that surrender is passive, that surrender is giving up, that surrender is waving the white flag, that if you surrender, you're going to get left behind, you're going to be a victim, you're going to be a doormat, you're going to be taken advantage of. You won't manifest your goals, dreams, and desires. If you surrender, you're going to get less in life. And I'm actually saying no. If you truly surrender in the highest sense of the word, what if you didn't get less, but you got more? More than you could have imagined, more than you could have predicted, more than you could have projected, more than you could have planned and written in your goal journal or vision board. What if it was more, and maybe not what you wanted or thought you wanted, but what if it was better and beyond and more amazing and more expansive? And so for me, that's the possibility of surrender. And so surrender is a letting go of control, or I should say the illusion that we were in control in the first place.
Yeah.
Surrender is a letting go of trying to force life to fit your limited idea of how you think it should be and who you think you should be and how you think things should be, so that you can take the limitations off of life and be available and be open to allowing life in its infinite intelligence to lead you and guide you and show up. So for me, the old, just the last thing I'll say is the old ego-based paradigm for living that we have been conditioned into, even with self-help books and spiritual books, is like, know what you want and make it happen and you create it, which to a level is true. But here's the thing. When you create life from the ego, there are limitations, because the ego itself is limited and rooted in past conditioning. So when we create from the ego, we're still limited to the past and what we know. And there's many moments where you and I, we've all had the experience where we achieved what we thought we wanted, only to realize that what we thought we wanted was what we thought we wanted based on who we thought we were. And it wasn't really fulfilling, because often our goals can be projections of unmet needs from childhood, and if I can just get that car and that house and that body and that girl and that Lamborghini, then I'm going to be enough. But it's not really authentic. And so for me, the question and the shift becomes not what do I want? The question becomes, it's a surrender question. It's an infinite question. What is it that life is seeking to express for me? What is it that the divine intelligence is seeking to express to me? What is it that God is seeking to express to me? What is my soul? What is the deepest impulse of what my soul is seeking to manifest and express? And for us to feel into that, to catch that vision, to attune ourselves to that deeper impulse, then we can align our personality, our ego, our mind, our money, our marketing, our resources in sync with the true authentic impulse of our highest soul's intention. And then we give 100% without attachment to the outcome. To me, that's an essence of surrender.
Oh, so beautiful. There's so many questions I want to ask at this point, but when you mentioned your mother and just sort of, how at peace she was and understanding that she is not her body.
Yes.
I wonder if this is something that she instilled very early in you, and if that, has been a sounding board to your own evolution as a person, as a soul, and doing the work that you currently do.
Yeah, my mother, my mother impacted me in ways I didn't even realize. My mother impacted me. I realized my mother's greatness when she was dying. Because honestly, prior to that, she was just my mom. She was just my Japanese mom who I loved, was the best, like, here's just mom, And so I didn't take her that seriously, other than the biggest blessing my mother gave me. And I realized humbly, not all of us in this human experience get to have this experience. But the biggest blessing my mother gave me was I knew beyond the shadow of a doubt I was loved. And I think that is a superpower. That is grace. For me, that was, you could say, that was the experience of God in human form. And so to know that I was loved so unconditionally by my mother, I think is the soil that enabled me as a child, as an adult, to grow, the foundation to grow, because it's like I knew I was loved. And so I think that's the greatest gift. But my mother, was never someone, she was not a big talker. And that's why I think I've come to the point, maybe the example of my mother. My mother's someone who just lived it, and that's why I always say now, spirituality for me is not what you say. A lot of people, we say all these great things. We've read the holy text. We can open our pineal gland. We see the blue light. We've done 4,000 ayahuasca ceremonies. We are Reiki practitioner. We're a this and that certified healer. We do Kundalini yoga. We're activating our chakras. It's like, so what? To me, none of that means anything if you're not living love. None of that means anything if you're not being kind. And so what I realized through my mother and her humble example was she lived kindness in every moment. She lived compassion and humility and kindness moment to moment to moment. And so for me, her example for me was not what she said, was really how she lived her life. And her life was not about her. Her life was not about, look at me. Her life was just about being of service in every situation, whether it was big, whether it was small, whether it was on stage, whether it was cleaning the toilets. It really didn't matter. It wasn't about the ego. And I think as a child, I never really appreciated that. But as I grew older, I realized her true greatness,
That's so beautiful. I hope you're enjoying the podcast thus far. Now, I wanted to give you a really neat resource that I've been working on for the past year. Are you living with chronic stress, burnout, or the nagging symptoms of anxiety and depression? Do you find yourself battling fatigue or brain fog, or feeling like you're not performing at your best? Well, what I've been working on all of this year is made especially for you. It is an online virtual event called the Thrive State Summit. You can register now for free at thrivestatesummit.com. But what it is this: you get to connect with and learn from 50 world-renowned thought leaders, experts, and some of your favorite celebrities. We've got people like Bruce Lipton, Vishen Lakhiani, Dave Asprey, Dr. Josh Axe, all united with a shared mission to tackle the mental health crisis that is impacting each and every one of us. Now, the Thrive State Summit isn't just another event. It is really my hope that it becomes a catalyst for change, particularly in this fast-paced world. And so what can you expect? You're going to expect to take home life-changing takeaways from all our experts, activation sessions to be able to bring you into states of calm and relaxation, really all the resources for you to become the best version of yourself. And finally, proceeds from the Thrive State Summit will go to 4 mental health nonprofits improving Rare Impact Fund, the Trevor Project, Good Days, Genius Recoveries. So please, if you invest in yourself, and please share this resource with your friends and family members. It's something I poured my entire heart into this past year, and I know it's going to help so many people. So register now at thrivestatesummit.com. The people that are coming to the summit, and certainly a lot of our speakers have, spoke about the ego, the default mode.
Oh.
And, people that have, come here, our audience, probably a lot type A personalities, CEOs, celebrities, athletes, busy professionals, they might find that they suffer from anxiety, stress, depression, and all the like. And we're hearing messages of how potentially that is living a life of their ego, living a life that potentially is untrue to them, where they're starting to suffer some of these things. How do we start to listen to our higher self? How do we open up the receptacle of what wants to come through us, from a divine place? I know for many people, this might be the first time they're hearing about this. So how do we start to listen to the whisper of the divinity that wants to come through us?
Yeah. First, I want to answer that quick, because you said many things in what you just said. Ego, listening, many. How do we connect to that? I could simply say, well, take the time to stop and be still. Out of the TikTok nonstop busyness of life, and be still and listen. But and so often we busy ourselves so much, doing this, doing that, going here, doing this, because we're afraid of what we might hear. So we keep ourselves busy so that we don't have to hear our deep intuition, because we're afraid, oh shit, if I really hear my intuition, then I might have to act on my intuition, and maybe I don't want to hear what my intuition is telling me, which is leave this relationship or leave this job. So let me just keep distracting myself, la, 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 so I don't have to hear it. So we could say, well, just be still. But the thing is, if you just be still, but inside of you you're still carrying a lot of mental, emotional trauma. You're still carrying a lot of mind stuff and clutter. You're still carrying a lot of unprocessed feelings and emotions and anger, shame, guilt, hurt, fear. Then even if you still may not be able to connect and hear. And so I think part of that too is a holistic approach of being still and creating the spaces and times to listen, but also doing the mental, emotional, spiritual, psychological, developmental work, therapeutic work, to clear the layers of conditioning that we hold inside and the emotions that we're carrying that have kind of been layered and layered and layered, that prevent us from truly connecting to the deeper aspect of our own being, our own soul, our own nature. So it's a process. Now, I'm going to go full circle and come back around. You mentioned the ego. The ego is not bad. A lot of times busy person, anxiety, ego. Ego's the enemy. Even a book, ego's the enemy. That is nonsense. Ego is not the enemy. Ego is not bad. The more you make ego the enemy, the more resistance you provide, the more you reinforce the very ego itself, the more the ego loves that. The ego wants a fight, because the job of the ego is to reinforce its existence and protect you from getting hurt. Mm-hmm. So the ego is not the problem. The truth is this: when you understand the nature of the ego, your relationship with ego shifts. When you understand the nature of the ego, you start realizing, oh, there's no problem. Every single human being that's incarnated into this human experience has an ego. Donald Trump has an ego. Putin has an ego. You have an ego. I have an ego. Dalai Lama has an ego. Everybody has an ego. If we stopped the Dalai Lama on the street in downtown LA and we said, hey, Dalai Lama, he would turn around and say, okay, yes. In order to do that, he has to have an ego. And so if he didn't have an ego, we would call Dalai Lama and he wouldn't even respond. And so ego is simply the vehicle that consciousness uses in the human experience to drive and navigate. And so our relationship with the ego is what's important, not ego itself. Now, it's not about killing the ego or annihilating the ego, because essentially the ego is not even a real thing. The ego is not even a thing. A bicycle is a thing. A bicycle. Pedaling is a process. The process of pedaling. And there's a difference. Ego is a process. It's a process of what? It's a process of identifying with yourself as mind, body, name, form, nationality, religion, education, belief systems and belief structures, the more we identify and hold on to the sense, ego is that false sense of what we believe ourselves to be based on all of that conditioning. And so the more we identify ourselves as that, the more in ego we are, the more limited we are, the more the more we believe ourselves to be this version of ourselves, the more we will seek to reinforce the ego nature, reinforce our belief system, because the ego doesn't want to change. The ego is deathly afraid of changing. The ego wants you to change, your spouse to change, your pet chihuahua to change, but the ego doesn't want to change, because change, surrender, letting go, questioning your beliefs, change for the ego feels like a death. Because if I am my beliefs, and if I am what I think, and I am my experiences, and I am the paradigms and the model of the world that I see life as, and I question that, then who the hell am I if I'm not what I believe? And that's terrifying. So what do? We tend to hold on to who we are, hold on to those beliefs. And so that's why sometimes changing those beliefs can be so difficult. One of the ways that we, shall we say, block our freedom, one of the ways that we stop ourselves from letting go, surrendering, transforming, are all of the lies that we tell ourselves. As human beings, for reasons which I mentioned and we can get into, we're constantly lying to ourselves. Some of it is not even intentional. Some of it's unconscious from childhood. You know, as children, we're born free. We're not so identified with our ego nature. We don't know that I'm Asian. Someone had to tell you that you're Asian. I'm a man. Someone had to tell you that you're a man. And everything that a man is. I'm Black. I'm from Africa. I had to be told what that is. And there's a cultural sort of consciousness, collective belief system as to, well, what that means. And then we attach to that. And if we buy into that, that can limit us. And so when we're born, we're just free. A child doesn't know. You're American. You're Swedish. You're good at math. A child will dance naked on the table and poop and sing. It doesn't care if it doesn't sound like Beyonce or Adele. It's just free until we're told, hey man, hey, Kien, you can't sing, bro. You can't sing. You can't sing. It's like, oh, maybe I can't sing. Maybe I'm not good at math. Maybe I'm not good at, numbers. Maybe I'm not good at, and now these belief systems, maybe I'm not lovable. Maybe I'm not worthy. So we hold on to these belief systems. So as children, we're born free. We're born in touch with our infinite nature. And it is our infinite nature to thrive. It is infinite nature to thrive and be circulating and be in vibrational alignment. And so as children, we are in that state of being already. It's a child will jump and be and gurgle and laugh for no reason. They are alive. Nothing. They didn't have to win a Lamborghini, get a house, make $1 zillion, just because they're in touch with what they are. And so what happens? And this is how ego gets created. We incarnate, we meet our parents. God bless them. Our parents, they're just doing the best that they know how to do based on their parents and their childhood and their conditioning. But maybe dad was crazy. Maybe mom was an alcoholic. Maybe they were just fighting all the time. Maybe they were divorced. Maybe dad wasn't around and we sort of abandoned. Maybe they were great people, but they just weren't very emotional and loving and didn't know how to meet our emotional needs. So maybe that was painful for us as children, to not have those emotional needs met. And because that was painful, two things happened. The first thing is we learn all sorts of strategies to shut down, disconnect, not feel, suppress, shut down. So layers and layers and layers and layers and layers and layers and layers of sort of unprocessed sadness and hurt and grief and pain begin to build up as we suppress it as a way to not feel it. And those layers build up that begin to, shall we say, cover up the light that we are, cover up the essence, the soul that we are, cover up the connection. So that pure connection that we had as children kind of gets covered up underneath the layers of sort of guilt and shame and hurt and sadness and anger and resentment. It's just like now there's layers that kind of block that connection. And then we also kind of maybe contract our heart, let me close my heart, control, so that I don't have to feel the pain of abandonment. I don't have to feel the pain that dad's not around. Then we also learn a way of being. Who do I need to be in the world to get love, to get validation, to get approval? Oh, when I get all A's and I'm a good boy and I act this way and be this way, then daddy loves me. Let me do more of that. So we develop unconsciously a role, a mask, a persona, a character that we become and contort ourselves into to get love, validation, approval. We learn to betray parts of ourselves, lie, to betray parts of ourselves so that you will love me. And then we do more of that. That gets reinforced by society and the world. And the version of ourselves that we become is what we believe ourselves to be. And now we don't even know that we're lying. We actually think that the version of ourselves that we become is who we are. And so we've developed this way of being to function and survive. And it worked for us when we were 10, it worked for us when we were 15, it worked for us when we were 20, but usually by the time we get into relationships and we're 25 and 35 and 45, it's kind of stops working for us, because now how can we thrive and open our hearts to love again when maybe in my childhood I had to be independent, not trust anybody, not trust my parents because they weren't around. So I just had to make up like, I don't need anyone, I'm going to be independent. So now you mean I need to open my heart and trust somebody in a relationship to meet my needs? Hell no. Let me keep my heart closed. So now we block the flow. Now we're not even available to love and more abundance and joy, to trusting the universe. So surrender for the ego that perceives sense of what we think we are feels terrifying, feels scary, feels like a death. So if we can understand, the ego, what we believe ourselves to be, is just a conditioned set of patterns. But the degree to which we're conditioned is the degree to which we're not free, and we're run by those conditionings, thinking it's who we are. But as you realize, what I think I am is not really me. It's just a conditioned set of patterns that I've developed, but it's changeable. What I really am is the light, is the source that's underneath that. Then we can start to surrender. Then we can start to go through a process of healing, to let some of those beliefs go, to question those beliefs, to let some of those old emotions go, to feel those emotions that we suppress, to release and let them go, because they're not who we are. So we can let them go now in a safe container and safe process. And as we clear the blocks, and as we release the emotions, and as we unravel those limiting belief systems of I'm unworthy and I'm unlovable and all those things we're holding on to for a sense of safety, as we let them go, layers and layers and layers release, and now the connection to our essential self is open. And that's when we start feeling the energy of our soul, the intuition, the creativity flow. So then if you combine that with creating the space and time in your life to sit and be and listen, now that there's less layers there, the intuition can flow much more unimpeded, so that we can become consciously aware to catch the inner guidance.
I hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. If you are, I just wanted to let you know, join our community. There's so many free resources and a great community of people that desire health, happiness, human potential, to have more in their life, more health, more energy. And when you have those two things together, you could create more happiness, more abundance, whether it be financial, romantic, all these things in your life. And if you're just starting out, you don't know where to go, just sign up for ThriveStateStarter.com, because in there you're going to get a bundle of information that includes a longevity ebook, a longevity and performance resource guide, lecture notes that come from my keynotes at Google, at Fortune 500 companies, all the insights in that keynote in lecture slide form given to you. And then finally, breathwork. I share 3 powerful breathwork exercises to access calm, which really gives you clarity and peace during the day, to access energy if you need to wake up and really motivate yourself, and finally a breathwork routine that you could do every single morning so that you could be very intentional with how you create that day. You can find all this stuff delivered free to your inbox at thrivestatestarter.com. And our community is growing. If you want to be a part of a community of people that desire the Thrive State, that are really in Thrive State themselves and help other people along with that, you could be a part of the community. You can get group coaching from me. We do breathwork sessions, meditation sessions, and you also get to drop in and participate in podcasts in the future. You could find more about the community at mythrivestate.com. That's mythrivestate.com. So check out those resources. You're not going to be disappointed, and please enjoy the remainder of this podcast. So good. Wow. Mic drop moment. Just tie it full circle there. For me, when I lead people through practices of breath work, I find it to be a pretty transformational experience, because we actually restrict blood flow to the areas of the brain where we believe a lot of these patterns are actually housed in. And if you could quiet that down for a second, you could actually have access to that essence. Yeah. So I know you've got an event coming up in December. I'd like for you to talk about that. But, say people can make the event or not, do you have additional practices? Because I know for some, the audience members are like, I just can't get myself to sit down and quiet down my mind.
Before I say something about the event, because I really want to make sure people have, so like, hey, you said a practice, like if there's one practice to start, like, okay, Kute, where the hell do I begin? Look, the truth is, I don't believe, and I've been doing this for 20 some years, there's no like 4-step formula to transformation. If it was that easy in terms of a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we would be robots and everybody would be Buddha and enlightened already. All the books of Jesus has come, Buddha has come, and the world is still, as human beings, we're still going through some stuff. And so human beings, we're delicate and we are creative, and we're not machines. And so I think every human being is different and conditioned differently and has to go through their own unique process. But I think if there's one place that universally we can begin, it's here. I would invite people to sit with, looking at all of the lies that you are telling yourself. Because what keeps us stuck are all the lies that we tell ourselves because of all the reasons I said about the ego. The ego doesn't want to change. So it's like in denial. We stay in relationships that we know are not right. We work jobs that we know are out of our integrity, but we're afraid to go for our real purpose because of what if it doesn't work and what will people think? We betray ourselves to get love, validation, and approval from those around us and wonder why we're not happy. So for me, there is no transformation without truth. There is no freedom without truth. I believe that the real spiritual practice, the real yoga, the real prayer, the real medicine is telling the truth to yourself. If you start telling yourself the radical truth about who you are and what you feel, your life will begin to transform. And that is the beginning of the opening of a shift, the beginning of an opening of a breakthrough, the beginning of an opening of a miracle, the beginning of an opening of surrender. To start telling the truth. And the truth, like, for instance, okay, let's take the question, what lies am I telling myself? Just starting it, what lies am I telling myself? You have to want to be free more than you want what you have. You have to want to be free more than you want what you think you want. And so, what lies am I telling myself? Just get real. The challenge is sometimes the ego, which job is to protect you and reinforce its existence out of self-preservation, plays a game of confusion. I'm confused. I don't know. I don't know what my truth is. I don't know if this relationship is right for me. I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know. We know. Deep down, we know. But sometimes we're afraid to acknowledge the truth because we're afraid of the consequence of what might happen if we really acknowledge the truth. But we know. There's a part of us that knows everything because at the deepest level, we are everything at the core. And so what lies are you telling yourself? What am I pretending to not know? And I would say to people, take the pressure off of yourself of having to even take any action. Take the pressure off. You don't even have to take any action. So what does that mean? It just means to start by telling the truth. You can't change something if you're not acknowledging where you're at. You can't get to New York from LA if you're pretending that you're in Utah. It doesn't work that way. So if you can just start with, I'm not in love with this person. Scary. You don't have to break up. You don't have to. Don't even just the truth. I'm not in love with my partner. I have not been in love for 5 years. It's not working. Okay, that begins a process inside. I hate my job. Scary, because what does that mean now? If this is the only way I know how to make a living and I have bills to pay, it's like, I better not acknowledge that. I hate my job. You don't have to leave. But just let the feelings come up. Let that begin a process inside. I have an alcohol problem. Okay, no judgment, but just acknowledge I have an alcohol issue. Step one. If you can start there, that starts a process inside and the movement happens. Transformation begins. And then when we lie to ourselves, it is painful. When we lie to ourselves, it's meant to be painful. So if you feel some pain in your life right now, it could be emotional pain, obviously depression, anxiety, stress, don't feel alive, I don't feel the joy of life, even though I have a good life. This is kind of an emotional pain. Physical ailment, right? A temporary physical backache, shoulder ache, some manifestation that temporary still is your unconscious speaking to you, or an ongoing disease still in the form of some pain can be your unconscious speaking to you of something that you're not acknowledging that is manifesting in your body. So I tell people, when you lie to yourself, it's painful. It's not meant to feel good. It is meant to be painful. Right? But what we tend to do in our culture is we drink it away, we smoke it away, we eat it away, we sex it away, we social media it away, we meditate it away, rather than just acknowledging the pain and looking at the pain is a friend. The pain is feedback. The pain is communicating to you. And so if we're able to get into a relationship with the pain, not wallow in it, but get into a relationship with it and say, okay, pain, what are you trying to tell me? Pain, what are you communicating to me? And if we're able to do this, then the pain can start informing us. Then we can begin to course correct and adjust and bring ourselves into alignment and use pain as a gift. And so I think if we can start with the truth, it's the truth that sets us free. And that's really the essence of the work, that I help people do. I create processes. I create experiential events. I create unique immersion seminars that help people uncover the layers of their unconscious, uncover the patterns that have been running them, so that you can start to heal and unravel them and unravel those layers of conditioning, so that you can connect to your power and your voice and your essence and your freedom again, and live that fully, powerfully, freely in life, in relationships, and share your purpose with your gifts as in the form of your purpose with the world. So,
oh, that's beautiful. And I know you have something coming up in December. Tell us about it.
Yes. This December, I'm doing, for those that are inspired in some way, maybe you feel a calling. I would say if you're someone, it's not for everybody, but if you're someone who you feel that you have been put on the planet for a purpose bigger than yourself, and you know that you have gifts to give, and you feel that your time is now to share those gifts, and perhaps you've read the books, you've been to the seminars, and you're tired. You're like, I'm done reading. I have enough information. For me, information is not enough to transform your life. Many of us, we know what to do, but we're not able, because of our conditioning, to do what we know. And if you feel a readiness to free yourself, then this December, I do a very special event. The last 11 years, I've done 21 of these events. And they've been truly, truly, truly life-changing in every way. Profound. It's a 12-day experiential seminar training without walls, where I take you to Bali, unplug you from the world for 12 days. And I take you through an immersive process that is designed to help you uncover the belief systems and the conditioning, and to help free you and heal you in such a profound way so that you can connect to your essence, your soul, and share that with humanity. And I believe that all of us, we have a gift. All of us were born for a reason. All of us, our dreams chose us for a purpose. And so if you're someone that you feel like, I'm ready for my next level, then I want to invite you to Boundless Bliss, the Bali Breakthrough Experience. It's December the 5th through the 16th. That's 5 through 16, 12 days, transformational. It'll be unlike anything you've experienced, that I can promise. This December will be the 22nd event I do in Bali. This December will be the last event I do in Bali, simply because I'm going to be focusing on, everything has a time and a season. And so I'm going to be focusing on bigger events. And so we take 18 to 20 people at a time. If you feel the calling, if you feel inspired, if you feel something inside, I would say you can find out more. Just go to www.boundlessblissbali.com. That's boundlessblissbali.com. Watch the video, read about it, apply. You'll receive an email to have an interview with my right-hand man. And if everything aligns, we'll see you in Bali.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And I can't wait to dive in a little bit more. I wanted to make sure we talk about that event, because I know so many people are feeling the nudge and they're like, where do we start? And, for transformational leaders like yourself, I'm so happy that there's a process that you can guide people through. I know some people listening right now are, wondering the following. In a world where control and ambition are highly valued, how can individuals start to begin balancing out pursuing their goals, or maybe what they thought that their goals might be, with embracing surrender?
Yeah, I think I mentioned this earlier, and I would start here, and I'll build on it. For me, our culture worships success. Our culture is obsessed with success. Our culture looks down on failure. And in that, we get so conditioned and attached to an idea of success based on limited culture, based on ego. And I think what's important, and that's why the ego-based sort of model of living and creating life is all about, what do I want? 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 We don't ask, who is the I? Who is the I that's wanting, right? Who is the I that's wanting? And that's why many folks come to me and they've made $100 million. They've made $1 billion. They've made 50 million. They've whatever it is. And they come to me and they say, could I have every reason to be happy? And I'm not sure why. I'm not fulfilled. I have the wife, I have the car, I have the house, why am I not happy? Because often your goals can be projections of your unmet needs. Your goals can be projections from your ego. And so I think we have to sort of shift the paradigm around success, the paradigm around who we are. And we tend to define sort of success as the attainment of an intended outcome, right? The accomplishment, attainment of an intended outcome. Yeah, but many of us, we've attained intended outcomes and we're not happy. So is that truly success? To me, we have to shift the entire playing field. We have to first remember who we are. So who are we? Are we just this body? Are we just this ego? We're born, we die, and that's it? Because even Bill Gates can only wear one pair of underwear at the same time. And at the end of Elon Musk's life, he is not taking one Tesla with him. He's not taking a Bitcoin with him. It's just Elon Musk alone. He's not going to take his hair with him, his shoes with him, his socks with him. I was in Egypt and I saw in the Egyptian, I don't know if you've been to Cairo, man, but there's this, the Egypt Cairo Museum, an entire floor dedicated to King Tut, gold and thrones and billions of dollars worth of King Tut's jewelry and possessions. And I remember walking around thinking, King Tut is dead, but his stuff is here. King Tut is dead, but his stuff is here. You and I will all die, but we will take nothing with us to the other side. Wherever you go, whatever you believe, you will take nothing with you, not even your wife, your spouse, your child. Nothing. The only thing you will take with you is the evolution of your consciousness. Nothing else. So first, realize who you are. Who am I? Your hair will change. Your age will change. Your beliefs will change. Your mind will change. Your body will change. You can change a lot of things about the body in today's cultures. I live in LA. I mean, a lot of stuff can change. So if you're just the body, then who are you? Are we just this body? Are we just this mind? Are we just this mechanism? And so I think we have to remember that what we are is energy, what we are is consciousness, what we are is a soul. We are a soul that reincarnated into this human experience in order to learn, in order to grow, in order to evolve. That life is kind of like a university for our soul's evolution. Life is kind of like a university for our soul's evolution, and life is a school. Everything is our teacher. Everybody is our teacher. Everything is our curriculum. So when we can start looking at life, not just from the ego lens, success and failure, very one-dimensional, right? Achieved it, didn't achieve it. Well, achieved it. Like, well, yes, you stayed in relationship for 80 years, but you were miserable. You were cheating. You didn't evolve. You became less authentic, but you stayed married for 80 years. How is that success? You worked a job, made a ton of money in the corporate company, but you betrayed your integrity, screwed people over, and you hated yourself. How is that a success? So what is success? If you're a soul, then we have to shift from the goal line, success and failure, soul line. We start seeing the multi-dimensional experience of life. In every experience, in every relationship, in every situation, inherent in that is a lesson and a growth opportunity for your soul. So no matter what you're going through, so long as you're learning and growing and evolving and learning the lessons for why you attracted that situation, for why you attracted that person, for why you attracted that dynamic, all lessons are repeated until learned. So long as you're learning the lesson for why you attracted that situation so that you can integrate that lesson and learn and grow and evolve and transcend that experience, that evolution of your consciousness that came from that relationship, even though maybe it didn't work out, that evolution of consciousness that came from that situation, even though you may have been fired or left the job, nobody can take that away from you. And that is the goal. That is the win. That is the soul line. And so long as you're growing on the soul line, even if you didn't attain the goal, to me, the purpose of the goal is not the goal. I mean, it's nice if you attain the goal. Don't get me wrong. I like attaining goals. So I'm not against attaining goals. But to me, the purpose of a goal is evolutionary, and every goal is evolutionary. And every goal that you have will take you on a journey. Every goal that you have will take you on a journey of learning, a journey of becoming, a journey of growing, a journey of evolving. And that lessons that you learn in the pursuit of the goal and who you become is what prepares you for the next stage in evolution, the next experience, and the fulfillment of your purpose. And so for me, so long as you're learning, growing, and evolving, you're succeeding, no matter what happens on the outside. To me, that's where we need to be looking. Am I growing? Am I evolving? Or am I successful by the world standards? I know many people successful by the world standards, but they're doing the same thing that they were doing 20 years ago because it's comfortable. And deep down, they know it. They don't feel alive. They don't feel turned on by life. They're playing it safe, just phoning it in, making the paycheck, a good paycheck, phoning it in, and then dying and looking forward to the vacation, but not feeling connected That's success.
I hope you enjoy that excerpt from the Thrive State Summit on this week's episode of the Thrive State Podcast. If you want to listen to the full interview along with the full interviews of the 50 thought leaders, experts, and celebrities in the mental health, emotional wellness world, please register for free at ThriveStateSummit.com. Again, if you find this podcast useful, please subscribe. Please share this episode with your friends and family members, and do us a favor by leaving us 5-star wherever podcasts are heard. It will help the show grow. And finally, if you haven't already, get the free resources. I have a bundle of longevity as well as peak performance resources to give you, which includes ebooks, lecture notes, breathwork exercises. You can get them all at ThriveStateStarter.com. Thank you again. Thanks for being a part of our community and our mission to really elevate human potential. And remember always, you are your best medicine.